This is the city we call our own. These are the stories of the people we call our neighbors. This is the heartbeat of our hometown. Naperville, this is Real Talk. All right, welcome back to Naperville Real Talk. This is the podcast where we feature all things Naperville, but today we're stepping a little bit outside of Naperville, and I am super excited to interview a guest, a friend of mine, and someone who is trying to make a big impact in our local area here, and that is attorney Katie Rabenda. Katie, thanks for being here with me.
Thank you so much for inviting me out. I really appreciate the time to come out and talk to you about what we're doing in this judicial election.
Yeah, so as said, Katie is running for circuit court judge in Will County. So tell me a little bit about, what area does that encompass?
So the second judicial subcircuit is encompassing Shorewood, Channahon, South Plainfield, West Joliet, Rockdale, Romeoville, and a little bit of Lockport.
Okay. So it's a pretty big area representing a lot of people. And,
yes, it is.
Tell me, before we even get into why you decided to run, how did you get into law to begin with?
So when I was in sixth grade, my teacher had a mock trial project for our class, and I got assigned to be the plaintiff's attorney, and I was representing the women who were burned in a factory fire.
Oh, gosh.
And I loved it. I loved the idea of fighting for justice for these people who had been hurt. So I spent the entire weekend in warm weather in my room, focusing on openings and closings and what my questions were going to be. And I knew at that point, this is what I want to do. Absolutely. So as soon as I turned 15, I tried to get a law job working in an attorney's office. So I got out the old yellow pages of the phone book and called through, got all the way down to the R's before I got an attorney who was willing to take me on as a 15-year-old. And I started working at a law firm, answering phones, doing filing, real basic stuff. But after a couple years working there, I started doing discovery responses and writing letters to clients and really listening to the people who were calling with their concerns, what was going on in their case, and trying to help them come up with creative solutions. And I was sold. I knew that's what I wanted to do.
I think that's something that a lot of times when people think about law, I'm just speaking as kind of a layperson, if you will, right? You think about the justice system and sort of very black and white, and like you just hit on something that it's really begins with people, right? So would you say that your heart for people is a big why for why you do this?
Absolutely. So every case is about people with a problem and people who are trying to overcome a lot of times one of the most difficult things that they've dealt with in their life, be it a family court case or a custody thing, a business dispute, a criminal case. These are people who are really at a difficult road in their life. And I want to try to help them through that. And what I've really seen is how judges set the tone in those situations to give explanations to people. Most people don't know about the court systems. They're not familiar with it. To set the expectations in the courtroom, to explain what's happening, what their rights are, what the next steps are, and making sure that everybody understands what's going on in those situations. And the best judges that I've been in front of are the judges who do that in a calm, respectful way of everybody who's in the courtroom, and that is what I really aim to be.
So when you got into law, what was kind of the deciding factor to not go into maybe business law or some other field with your degree?
So I started out at a general practice firm, and I did real estate and small claims, some personal injury, municipal law, and some municipal prosecution. And I loved the municipal prosecution. That was the part, reading police reports, reviewing cases. It was the most interesting for sure. You get some entertaining stories along the way. And so one day I was in court as a local prosecutor, and the chief of the state's attorney's office was in the courtroom too. And she said, we have a spot open. Would you be interested? We'd love to have you. And I was in.
Yeah.
I wanted to do prosecuting full time. Helping people, upholding the law, and I have been there ever since. I've been there for 13 years now.
So what's that like on a day-to-day basis? I mean, I can just imagine, right? I mean, just some of the things that you encounter that the general public never does.
So it is incredibly eye-opening. I came from a small town and I was pretty sheltered growing up. And to see crime and the effects of crime on a daily basis is a challenge, because I currently handle felony offenses, so murders, shootings, hijackings, child pornography cases, had some sexual assault related cases, and working with the victims and seeing how devastating some of these crimes are for them, for their families. It is a challenge, but it is so rewarding to see that I can try to make a positive impact in their situation, to be the person who's going to listen to them, who's going to fight for them, sometimes when they don't have the ability to do it themselves. Also, a lot of people who are in the criminal justice system are there because of some underlying issues. So many crimes are committed because of addiction or mental health issues. And I have done a lot of personal research, a lot of work with people who have been in traumatic situations, and I understand trauma responses very well. So I try to work towards solutions that won't bring us back to that place. So what is the underlying issue, and how do we make it so this person is not back in the courtroom, that there is not another crime committed, that there is not another victim who is hurt? Do they need to get mental health help? Do they need to have a better understanding of domestic violence cycles? Is it an addiction? Can we try to help them and motivate them towards overcoming that addiction so they're not in that situation, they're not hurt, their family's not hurt, and citizens aren't hurt either?
It sounds like a pretty holistic approach. And I think a lot of times, I mean, even my own personal bias, we, again, kind of approach the thought on this topic as maybe very black and white, and maybe it's slanted one way or another, but it seems to me like what you're describing is a mix of problem solving and empathy, but not empathy at the, to the detriment of the victim. Is that fair to say?
Absolutely. So it's a balancing act. Now, I see, especially having been in the criminal justice system so long, we do have some individuals who just have been committing crimes for decades, and some people who commit such serious crimes that you have to take them away from their ability to access victims.
Sure.
Like sometimes you do have those situations, but a lot of situations are, how do we avoid this? And I always look at it as trying to prevent this situation in the future. Now, sometimes the way that we do that is to try to motivate people. If you got to sit in jail for a little bit and realize that this is a terrible idea, I don't want to be back here. Sometimes it's counseling. Sometimes it's, forcing them to face addictions. So I do try to do that. But I have been known to be a pretty tough prosecutor. I take doing the right thing and following the laws very seriously. We have laws for a reason. They're here to protect people. They're here to protect everyone. And if not everybody is playing by the rules, then we see businesses get hurt. We see families hurt. We see victims hurt. So
it seems like your approach to your current job, at least for what I think, is right on the money. And it sounds like you're passionate about it. So why the decision to run for judge? So I have seen a huge increase in a trend away from victims' rights, away from concern for victims, away from concern for people's constitutional rights, away from concern for community safety. And that's really a big problem for me. I'm a mom. I have 3 boys. I want my kids to grow up in the neighborhood, riding their bikes and playing ball in the street. And
don't try to keep our community safe, our businesses and our families safe, then we're going to lose our community. And we are seeing that in Cook County already. They have taken some of the steps that we are now seeing statewide, and it's been a disaster. And I can't let that happen to Will County. Like, I am not going down without a fight, and I can't make the impact that I want to in my current role. So kind of pulled myself up and said, okay, this is going to be a fight, and I am not a political person. I have never been interested in running for any kind of office before, but I am not willing to see my community get ruined. So here I am running for judge.
As you know, my day job as a realtor, one of the biggest questions that people ask me is safety, and where's a safe neighborhood and what's good schools. And of course we see people flocking from the city of Chicago and even parts of suburban Cook County to Will County, to DuPage County, because their perception, at least, and I think the data for the most part backs it up in most areas, is that it's safer, right? And so, but you're right, if we allow the policies and the personalities that have led Chicago and parts of Cook County to where they are to happen here, it's not going to be like that anymore, right?
Right.
Yeah.
And we are seeing a huge wave of increased crime in the few short months that we've had the Safety Act implemented. We have seen a big increase. We have been seeing over the past few years that Cook County has implemented their current policies and procedures. We are seeing a huge wave of criminals coming from Cook County to Will County to commit crimes and then flee back to Chicago. And it's very frustrating, but I have seen how having firm decisions and upholding the law does make a difference. We've had a couple of cases now where people from Cook County get arrested. We had one gentleman on a jail call telling his grandpa, I'll be out by Sunday on a hijacking. He never got out. He was sentenced to 22 years after he hijacked multiple people, including a veteran who is a retired individual, putting hundreds of lives at risk, fleeing the police at a high rate of speed. And so I think when you get the message out that we are concerned about our laws and we are concerned about the safety of our community, that you can make a difference.
So you mentioned already, it's a fight, it's tough, it's political to run. So, it seems like a lot of work. I mean, is your family all on board? Your husband, your kids?
So my husband is 100% on board. He has been my campaign manager. He is fantastic. He's been helping with a lot of the promotional stuff. So judges aren't able to fundraise on their own because we don't want improper influences on judges. Okay. So I have some individuals who have been helping me with that. My husband's number one on that list. Some family members as well who have been helping me with the different steps. My kids are pretty understanding. My boys have had to go door to door with me a couple times getting signatures, and they are going to be teaching me about Snapchat so I can expand my horizons on social media. But for the most part, my kids have been pretty great.
Yeah, I mean, it's a long process, right? I mean, you began this several months ago. We're getting into primary season as we record this, and then the elections in the fall, right? So I mean, that's well over a year.
I think I started in last March.
Yeah.
Thinking about it, doing my research, trying to find out what the steps are. There are so many different steps that not everybody is aware of, and making the connections with people, finding out how to do things, finding out what needs to be done, meeting those people, going to those events, getting to know different players in the political arena. Like I said, I'm not political. I'm just a mom and a wife and a lawyer and now I suddenly have to figure out how to get my name on the ballot.
Yeah.
So, been learning a lot of things.
So we kind of talked about the misconceptions of running for judge and the political affiliations and things like that. Are there some limitations on you in terms of the campaign and what you can get into? And just speak to that, because it's a little confusing to me, if I'm honest.
A judicial campaign is very different from any other political office because judges are not allowed to say how they would rule on any case or controversy that may come before them in the future.
Yeah.
So all the political questions that people ask candidates and trying to understand who they are, how they would deal with things, judges can't answer most of those questions.
Yeah.
So that is a big limitation. Because judges aren't supposed to make or change rules.
Yeah.
They're only to apply the law as it's written. And we don't want people electing judges because they think that they're going to rule in their favor in the future.
Right.
Or businesses supporting them because of those things. Because you want a fair and impartial judge.
Yeah.
So it's very difficult because people at most political events want to ask you all the political questions.
Yeah.
So I always tell people, I can't answer that question, but I can tell you about who I am and what I do. Because as my husband always says, actions speak louder than words. I can tell you who I am, what I do with my time, what I do with my career, and the actions that I've taken to back up who I am. And I think it's really important for people to find out about different candidates, not just what the candidates say, but what have they done?
Yeah.
What have they done to support the ideals that they're espousing? Because it's very easy to say one thing. It's very different, to do it in real life. The other thing that we kind of touched on is judges can't fundraise at all. So getting your message out to people and getting your information out is costly, obviously. So that is a bit of a challenge because we don't want judges to be, partial to political donors. So we are not allowed, even if people do donate, that we are not allowed to know who donated or what.
Okay.
So there are a lot of additional rules for judges, and I think that for very good reasons.
Yeah, so it sounds to me like, especially given the party affiliations and things like that, judge is not one of those offices that people should just check because of the letter next to the name, right? You really have to know who the person is.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
In particular, you really should find out about who that judge is as a person, what they stand for, what their ideals are. I, as an attorney, are always telling my friends, if you want to know about candidates, I can tell you about judicial candidates if I have been in front of them as an associate judge before, what my experiences were, if they're attorneys, what my interactions have been, what their reputation is. And I think it's important to, reach out to somebody who may know them, look into them, run a Google search.
Sure.
What have they been doing? And finding out information about them that way, not just, do they have a D or an R next to their name?
Yeah, I would agree. I think there's a lot of talk at the national level and the state level. There's a microscope on the justice system, when it comes to, and both parties, right, have ideas about about fairness and about injustice. And it's very, very heated debate. What's your take on that?
It is a very heated debate. And I really think a lot of it comes down to the way things are portrayed in the media. Because at this point, politics is about who can complain the loudest and short sound bites of information. And as a prosecutor, when I have a murder case, I have boxes and boxes of evidence, hours and hours of body camera and interviews, and I spend hours and hours reviewing things, researching things. Those big cases can't be condensed to a 30-second soundbite.
Yeah.
And that 30-second soundbite is the information that the person putting that out, the limited information that they want you to know.
Yeah.
So I think that very often things are misconstrued because they're put out in shortened, condensed information in a forum that is designed for clicks
Right.
or likes. And the way you get those is to incite fear or anger or division. So I have not seen in real life the concerns that a lot of people are portraying. I think that for the most part, judges look at all the facts. And we have to also remember the judges don't get to know everything. When you're presenting a case, there is limitations on what can be introduced. And so the judges are looking at what is proven in that case, what witnesses were willing to come forward, what evidence was presented to them, and they're applying it to the facts of that case. So very often there are outside perspectives, there are outside people who all have different motivations, and they're all vying to win their point. So I think it gets condensed too much to the point that people don't see the big picture.
Yeah.
That is what's really happening.
Yeah, I mean, that's a huge issue. How can you, and that's just a limitation of the media to some extent. They can't
Absolutely.
possibly give the depth and breadth that would be required to give people the full picture.
Right.
So they have to condense it down, and then the other factor, as you pointed, for clicks or for views or whatever, is that they've got to make it salacious. And we can fault them for that, but that's also how they stay in business. So,
Oh,
yeah.
absolutely. And nobody's going to watch the 100 hours of body cam footage.
Right. Except you.
Except for me. And like I said, the media can't show that, won't show that. That would not be interesting. We don't even show that to the judge or the jury, the 100 hours. Nobody wants to watch that.
Yeah.
You have to take the little pieces and put the pieces together to form your case.
Yeah.
And so when you form your case and then the case gets condensed more and more and more, I understand why the public can see the little information that they have and think that there may be some injustice or some things that were handled incorrectly.
What are some of the moments when you look back on your career up to this point that you feel like, and I don't even mean specific cases or anything, but just kind of generalities even, where you feel like you're making the biggest difference?
So I had a domestic violence victim who I talked to on the phone for a long time because she had grown up in an environment where her opinion was not valued and she was not valued, and she didn't really have a say. So she chose relationships that had the same effect.
Yeah.
And after talking to her for a very long time, she just said, I appreciate you so much. Nobody has ever listened to me and cared what I have to say about something. And that really touched my heart. I want to make that difference. I've also had kids in certain situations. I've done a lot of cases where kids are witnesses or victims. Say nobody else was trying to take care of me, and thank you for trying to protect me.
Yeah.
And I mean, that'll just hit you right in the heart.
Yeah.
Especially for me, I have a big heart for kids who have had traumatic situations and adverse childhood experiences in their life. And I understand how those negative situations, if not treated carefully and with respect and love, those people have so many struggles down the road in life. And so if I can make an impact when they're little, if I can give them a voice when they're little, if I can help them through a scary situation, nobody wants to testify. No adult wants to testify. I'm an attorney. I'm in the courtroom every day. I had to testify once and I was a nervous wreck. Nobody wants to do it. And for these kids, especially kids who are having to sit in a room with somebody who has hurt them or someone they loved, it's just absolutely terrifying. Yeah. So if I can help them through that and help them feel comfortable in doing that, it's something that they're going to have to do anyways, that's what I want to do.
I think what's interesting about that, and you mentioned before, the cycle of violence. I mean, I think something that maybe goes overlooked is part of the justice system is obviously stopping the criminal action, right? But then in helping or at least bringing justice to the victim, you're potentially stopping future instances as well, because as you just pointed out, I mean, those victims, because of what they've experienced, could be more likely to go on and become criminals themselves, right? So
it is so sad. In the years that I've been working, I have done a lot in the domestic violence area, and you see so often children whose parents were abusive gravitating towards relationships where they are abused,
Yeah.
or those children become abusers.
Yeah.
You see so many generational situations where abusers become abusers, victims become victims, and the cycle continues. And if we can stop that even a little bit,
Yeah.
even for a couple families' timelines generationally, we could make such a positive impact. And that's what I really aim to do, is help those people see that this isn't what they deserve. So many victims will say, well, it's just normal. Well, that's just life.
yeah,
And life shouldn't be scary. You should not be afraid in your own home. You should not have a situation where you expect to get hurt because somebody else is drinking or somebody came home on drugs, So try to make that impact.
I think too. I mean, this is maybe just my soapbox moment, but for the folks who don't care about local elections, or who might go into November and mark off the top of the ticket and forget about the bottom, when you distill it down to those personal situations, that's why it matters, right? That's why it matters to vote and who you vote for.
Yes, you were absolutely right. Sometimes people don't get to the bottom of the ticket, and sometimes you have to flip over that ballot and get to the very bottom. That's where the judges are, so look for me on the very bottom. But they are so important because these are the people who are presiding over cases that are so dear to people's heart.
Yeah.
Custody disputes, business disputes, even small claims things where your family's money and resources or things of value are taken and you are seeking justice. Criminal cases where people are victims, people are defendants because they are facing these struggles and they need the help, that they don't have the resources or the ability or the motivation to get on their own. And judges really set the tone in the courtroom, in the legal community, and then the community generally of concerns for safety, how we're going to treat each other, how parents should co-parent their children. It's really important to have people who are going to respect other people, have empathy for people, and apply the laws fairly and without any improper biases.
Yeah. Yeah. And I would venture to say that at some point in, all of our lives, the folks who we elect to local office are going to have a much, much bigger impact on us and our community and our children than, the two guys in the White House running for the White House. You know what I mean? So
absolutely. Yeah. And the judges really affect our day to day.
Yeah.
I shouldn't say everybody, but most people are going to have to be in the courthouse at some point in their life, whether it's a seatbelt ticket or, a divorce or some kind of criminal case. Like, you're going to be there either as a victim or as a defendant or a petitioner or a plaintiff. You might just be a family member of somebody who is in a difficult situation, be there to support them.
Yeah.
And you are going to want somebody who explains to you or your loved one what's happening, what's expected clearly, to have them treat you or your family member with respect during that process. It's so important.
All right. So let's future cast. We're going to assume and wish good things that you get elected this fall. Do you have future ambitions beyond that, running for any sort of higher office?
No, absolutely not. I have great respect for our Illinois Supreme Court and our appellate court justices, but that is not an area that I'm interested in. Those Supreme Court and appellate court, they essentially review what happens in the trial court. So their job is primarily reading cases, researching, and writing opinions. I want to be in the courtroom with people, having that direct contact with the citizens of Will County.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm really interested in. Circuit court judge is my ultimate dream. That's where I would like to end. And this whole campaign thing is not my favorite. So I would be very happy to just be a circuit judge for the rest of my career.
That's awesome. Tell me a little bit about you personally. What makes you tick? What do you do for fun?
I do a lot of different things. Like I said, I really have a heart for kids who have experienced trauma. So I do a lot with foster and adoptive families. I am a children's programming volunteer with Love Moves Us. They're a foster and adoptive family support group. So I run the littlest kids. I'm in with the babies. So we play with the kids, do crafts and snacks while the parents get a chance to spend some time, have a meal with other parents of foster and adoptive families, learn some techniques for parenting kids who have experienced trauma. While we play with the kids, give them a chance to have fun, be kids, enjoy life. I also have a charity that I started. It's Blessing Bandits. We are a Illinois not-for-profit, and it started with my kids and I just doing like random acts of kindness in like fun, sneaky ways. And so we do random acts of kindness still, but our big projects that we've done for 5 years now is Gifts for Guardians. And we have an opportunity where we collect donations and kids in homeless shelters get to shop for their guardian, their mom, their dad, from donated gifts. So this gives the kids the opportunity to experience the joy of giving.
Yeah.
Because for me, the best part of Christmas is picking out something special and giving it to someone you love and seeing the excitement on their face. So these kids get that opportunity. And parents, especially around Christmas, they're always sacrificing for their family. And as a mom, I know that I don't always feel the most appreciated by my boys. So this gives kids an opportunity to show appreciation for their parent. So we love that. We work with Morning Star Mission, Women and Family Shelter. We work with Guardian Angel Domestic Violence Shelter. We've also provided gifts to the teen parents at the Joliet Township High School. So we do a lot of different things like that. I like just watching my kid play football. My husband's a coach of the Plainfield Saints, and I love watching him coach and my son play. And I don't have a ton of time other than that.
Sounds like it.
But if I do, taking my dog for walks in the forest preserves around Will County. I have a little tiny Morkie, and she loves getting outside. So that's kind of what I do in my free time.
That's great. Well, so we've still got a hard road ahead. We're at this point, if I can do math, 9 months from the election. If what you spoke about resonated with somebody, how can they help the campaign?
So we have Facebook, we have Instagram, we have a website, katierabenda.com, and you can go there. We are looking for all sorts of help. People can donate there, they can volunteer their time. Just telling friends and family, word of mouth is always the best way, I think. If you have seen this and you appreciate it, just, tell your friends, send it to your friends. We need volunteers to help put up signs. If you want a yard sign, I have very cool yard signs that my husband designed. We can get one of those in your yard. And so even things as simple as liking, sharing, clicking, like I said, It's clickbait, but realistically, that's the world we're in. If you can share some of our social media things, just to help get other people to understand who I am, what my goal is, and that would be a great support for our campaign.
Well, I've got a bonus question for you. So this is my personal question for you. So as a real estate agent, since I've trapped you here in this room, I've got to get your intimate knowledge of public safety. So it's just a big question, that clients ask me all the time. And the limitations of a real estate license are that I am not allowed to pretend that I'm an expert when it comes to safety. Because one person's idea of safe is maybe different from somebody else's. So if you were going to give advice to home buyers, maybe they're coming from out of state, maybe they're moving from the city or just from another suburb, how do they get a good idea and understanding of where's a safe area? I mean, are there resources that they can look at to find crime stats, that kind of thing?
Absolutely. So every time that we have bought a house or looked into that, I always look into the neighborhood. So you got to drive around the whole neighborhood, check out the areas, because very often crime doesn't stay in the house that it's being committed in, especially if you have situations such as drug dealing or gang involvement or shootings. So ask around about the neighborhoods. The best source of information, go to the police department websites. I know the Joliet Police Department had a website that you could see crime trends. Now, just expect you're going to see like thefts at Walmart and things like that in business districts. That's going to be something that's common. But if you're seeing shootings or violent crime or often drug-related offenses in certain areas, you might want to avoid that area. The other thing you can do is you can FOIA specifically the information, such as if you're looking at a house. I had a friend who was looking at a house, and I walked in and I was like, ooh, this might have been a meth house. And that's obviously not something that you always, certainly the realtors aren't going to know that, probably, unless
it's supposed to be disclosed, but I'm guessing the meth head probably didn't disclose it.
Yeah, people aren't always real excited to disclose their criminal activity. So you can FOIA, you go to the Freedom of Information Act. Every public body has the ability to send a FOIA request and ask for information about that property. So you can find out, were police called to that neighborhood 37 times because, the neighbor next door, or has there been shootings on the street? You can FOIA either specific addresses. I have FOIA'd, send me information on all the calls of service to the street, and you can get information that way. Also, if you happen to be in the neighborhood and see a squad car, walk up to them, ask them. Most officers are very friendly. As long as they're not on a call actively investigating some crime, they'll probably be happy to tell you, oh yeah, we get called here all the time. Or, no, this is a great neighborhood. I sit here and eat my lunch because it's quiet, nothing ever happens. So definitely also maybe visiting them at different hours.
Yeah.
Because your showing is probably going to be during the day.
Right.
And you might want to just take a drive-through at night and just see, what the area is like. Is there a ton of people outside? Is there businesses in the area that have a lot of traffic at that time of day? So those are different ways you can check out an area, see what's going on with it.
Yeah, no, that's great advice. And I love the tip, too, of speaking to police. And I think just the theme of what I'd love to see in our communities more is get to know your local leaders, get to know the police, get to know people like yourself, right? I mean, these are real people who live and work in our communities. And, it matters who they are, and we should want to have positive relationships with them, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for joining me and for doing what you're doing.
No problem. I appreciate the time to come out and be able to share with people who I am and what I'm trying to do.
Well, Katie Rabenda for Judge. Help out. We're going to put links down below so you can go to the website. You can find out what Katie's upcoming events are, where you can see her in the community, and be sure to get out this November if you live in her subcircuit and vote for Katie. Thanks again.
Thank you.